Hello! Hi everyone, I'm Amanda Marie from Wicked Smart Wellness and you're watching Stay Smaht. We're just giggling because that's kind of what we do. This is Tracy Lunt of Serendipitous Souls and I am here today to chat with her a little bit about her business, and we're going to have a conversation talking about lessons from the universe as well as how to speak, live, and own your truth. So I do want to start by saying I have this over here, so if anyone has any questions or wants to engage or anything like that, I will be able to keep track of that, so please, we welcome that. So hi Tracy.
Hello.
Is there anything you want to say as we get started?
I'm just wanting to say that I am honored to be your first guest.
You know, it's interesting because this is something that's been in the works for quite some time, and Tracy has actually been a part of it with me from the beginning.
Yeah.
We actually have some funny stories that we could share about that actually helped us come up with our topic today, lessons from the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Speak your truth or else.
Yeah, pretty much.
Kinda. This is not the first time that we've actually tried to film this, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and the first one was really good.
Yeah, we actually had an incredible conversation that unfortunately was filmed in black and white with absolutely no sound. So we made it.
Speaking your truth.
We were talking about speaking your truth, but we weren't actually speaking. Well, we were, but you couldn't hear us. So obviously a little missing pot was there, and I honestly wasn't speaking my truth fully because I wasn't really ready. Even though I was ready, it wasn't the right time, and I can't think of another better time than now. So here we are, finally doing this, and it means so much to me that everyone that's been a part of it and that's joining in, and that I'm here right now. So like I said, we are at Serendipitous Souls, located in Peabody, Mass. You want to tell us a little bit about your business?
Okay, so holistic healing practice. I do all kinds of services. I'm like, Lokia, sorry. I do all kinds of services, massage, energy work. The energy work I do, polarity therapy, and Reiki. Guided meditation, workshops, guided meditation individually, chakra series, God, you name it, psychic readings, mediumship readings. It's a plethora of services. Basically, all these different tools help me help others on their unique journey.
And you know what? Tracy is actually an official sponsor of Wicked Smart Wellness. I do not just go ahead and promote something that I haven't experienced or that I don't believe in. So I can sit here and tell you firsthand that her services are incredible. I personally did the chakra series, and I believe it's why I'm sitting here right now going live with you guys, because there was a lot about myself that I kind of needed to adjust and learn before I was really able to keep moving forward and help my business and my personal self grow. So that is something that ties along with the whole speaking the truth thing, because I think sometimes we think we're speaking our truth,
Yes.
even when we're not necessarily doing so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there can be old past traumas. There can be things that sometimes we think we know what we want and we're going ahead and doing it, and it's not maybe in our highest, or it's not ready, and we're thinking, oh yeah, I'm speaking the truth. And that's one of my favorite things about the throat chakra is people often think, oh, throat chakra, I'm expressing my truth, I'm being verbal, people are talking a lot. Just because you're talking a lot or you see somebody that talks a lot doesn't necessarily mean they're speaking and living their truth. It just means that they're yapping. Sometimes it's they don't know. It's just nice to get words out. Then if you're silent, people that are like, I love it. I always go to the monks that have like vows of silence. They're very connected. They're living their truth. It doesn't
Even if
have
you're
to
not
be
saying it out loud.
Exactly.
That's the thing that's kind of important to remember. Speaking your truth doesn't necessarily mean speaking it.
Exactly.
Which is why I kind of mentioned the whole speaking, living, owning.
Yes.
Because I think the most important one out of all of that is actually owning it.
Yes.
That's what it all falls back on usually.
And there's all kinds of signs if you're not speaking, owning, and living your truth that people may not even recognize.
I'm only laughing because plenty of times have gone by where I just haven't recognized them when I should have.
And you're like, oh man. Physical signs of not speaking, living, being in your truth, any throat issues, If you get colds often, sore throats often, strep, anything involving the throat, the teeth, and believe it or not, the nose and your ears.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that that also ties along to the fact that people sometimes, we all, and I'm including myself in this, sometimes forget that our bodies are going to talk to us. So when you feel these things happening, everyone just connects physical ailment to just something being wrong physically, when it could have something to do internally, mindfully, all that fun stuff.
I'm a big believer, and there's also evidence out there. Again, anything I say, take with a grain of salt. I mean, this is just my beliefs from stuff that I picked up, but you know, they say energy comes before actual physical form. So when we're off energetically, and if we don't listen to the little signs and subtle hints, and we don't do anything, it builds and builds, and then we get blockages. And then if you're still ignoring it, like with little pains, big problems can happen with your body. Your body just screams, it's like, hey.
It's true. Well, I mean, I personally have had instances where, or I could actually give the example of the first time we filmed this show. I woke up feeling a little off. Something just didn't feel right. I wasn't sure what it was. I was really excited for the show, so I thought that it was just kind of like nerves. So I'm like, all right, let's brush that off. Then, it was like one thing after the next. Like, I couldn't get gas in my car. My tripod broke. The SD card wasn't loading.
You even had the camera. You practiced with the camera, but the camera settings had changed.
Yes. I set everything up before I got here, and I'm like, okay, it's in black and white. The sound is off. What's going on? And it was just one thing like after the other until finally we went ahead, filmed it anyway, to find out that it did not work.
Yep.
And it's funny because it worked because you could see us, but you could not hear us. And there was obviously a reason for that.
Yes. It wasn't time.
Yeah, and now it is. So here we are. I'm really excited too because I have been on this journey for a little bit, kind of just learning about myself, working on healing and growing. And I tell you guys all the time that I am honestly just sharing what works for me. Like Tracy said, take it with a grain of salt. I'm just sharing the way things benefit me on my experiences and
I love that you do that, because the more tools that people have, the better off they are, because honestly, we're all unique individuals. So you can read about these things and hear even personal friends and be like, this worked awesome for me, you should do it. And then you do it and it's like, you're not so much. So it's good to find out about all the different tools, figuring them out, and just seeing what your own personal tool works or tools work for you.
Absolutely. And that's the thing too, because sometimes even if I tell you something and it's not, you don't have to do it exactly how we say either. Like sometimes it's just a nice little guide to look into something else. Like even sitting here talking, some of you may not be familiar with energy work.
Right.
And it's something that some love and some may not be interested in, which is totally fine, but we do believe in it. So why not tell you about it and how it has worked for us and the experiences, because the thing is, you don't know until you try a lot of the times.
I can say my own personal experiences. Oh my good Lord. Where do you start? One specific that's coming up for me to share. It's not even necessarily about throat. It's more about chakras. You know chakras at all. It's my power, my willpower. Growing up, household wasn't the best. Won't get into history, but I always used to have my hands on my belly, always, and I didn't know why. And I had a ton of stomach issues, like crazy, to the point where I was going to hospitals and getting tests, and it should be this, but it's not, and we don't know, and try this and try that, like medical stuff that just wasn't happening for years. And then when I finally got into energy work, things started to change, and I was like, oh my, with no medicine, operations, and what have you. It was just learning about myself, healing what I wanted to heal, like needed the healing. And all of a sudden it was like, even doctors like, what? And I'm like,
it's just happening.
It just happens.
You're learning and you're figuring out what works for you, and you were able to transform your power from within into something to benefit yourself and others, which is incredible. And it's interesting. I actually had a similar experience, which is what put me on my journey. I had the same type of thing. My stomach hurt, and or I was just not feeling well, and it was a mess. Like I couldn't do much. Like I was canceling on friends, calling out of work. Like it was so bad. I got tested. I saw so many different doctors, and they were finally like, it's anxiety. Like we don't know what to tell you. Like it's anxiety. Like I'm sorry. Like I've tried different medications. I went to therapy. I've seen psychologists, and let me tell you, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it just doesn't work for everybody. And again, if it works for you, please continue. I'm not saying not to.
Yeah.
But there are some times where, like you talked even about us working together, that may not work for everybody.
Right.
However, it works for me. It works for plenty of others. And I kind of got on this journey because I realized that if all of this other stuff wasn't working, I had to find a way to make myself feel better.
To what you said about us working, so I'm a big believer too, and it's funny because some people like, yes, this is a business, and it's what I do for work. However, to be completely honest with you, I mean, if I had enough money that I would be comfortable. Like, if we won the lottery, yay! My husband's actually said that. If we won the lottery, you can stop working. I'm like, I won't stop working. He's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I will see the people that I want to see, and I will ask for donations, and then put the donations toward like something bigger, because I do believe in it and I love what I do.
I love that. That's awesome.
But I'm also, people think I'm crazy when I tell them, I'm like, if you work with me and it doesn't gel, that's fine, because you need to be, and whether that be massage, energy work, or whatever, I'm a big believer, you need to be with people that you're comfortable with, that can hold space for you, that you just mesh with. You can, and that's why you should, if you want to try it, sometimes if you work with one person, don't give up right away, because maybe it just wasn't a fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I mean, I have had energy work done with certain people where they're like amazing, but something with me just didn't necessarily feel like I was in the right place. And again, they're great. I have nothing against them. They have a great energy, a great vibe, but sometimes your energy just doesn't click.
Exactly. It's aligning. You gotta
Exactly.
find what aligns. It's not good or bad. It's just trying to find what aligns with you.
That's very true. And I think that that's one of the other things that can kind of cause people to struggle on journeys like this, because sometimes it's easy to be like, well, that just didn't work. Like, I'll move on. And you just can't do that. And I know that's easier said than done. I've definitely done that before. But it's a learning curve, and it's something that I'm working on, and you gotta just keep trying. I mean, I gotta be honest with you, like a year ago, if this didn't work the first time, I probably just wouldn't have tried it again.
I've tried it, done there, done that, bye-bye.
I'm like, oh, it's not working, it's falling apart. Maybe
Well, that
something
human,
else.
like, especially now, like, that's human. It's like, oh, if it doesn't work, we want, like, the quick fix. And if it doesn't happen right away, it's usually like, never mind.
Well, yes, and I think that happens a lot too, just with healing from within and growing, because a lot of us expect, like in the beginning of all of this, like I expected immediate results from everything I always did. Like I didn't realize that everything was going to take some time. And I mean, also when it comes to putting things out there to the universe, it's not like you're casting a magic spell and it's gonna happen right in front of you. You have to realize you gotta put the work in, you have to truly want it, and you have to wait for it to be the right time.
It's divine timing.
Exactly.
Things work in divine timing.
It's so true. It really is. And I think that one of the other things that kind of goes along with that is just like, we all think that we know who we are, and it takes time. That's another thing that takes time. You gotta learn about yourself, because I guarantee you can learn something new about yourself every single day of your life.
Well, that's the thing too. When we are growing up, we hear so much from the people that are raising us, outside society. There's so much being input that we often take on these like recordings and put it on ourselves, when that's not truly who we are.
It's true.
So you have to like dig in and figure out what's truly me.
No, I completely agree with that. And I think actually this is something I can offer up to everyone, is I encourage everyone at some point to kind of just sit down and say like, who am I? Close your eyes, meditate, think about it. Use your full name. So if this was me, I would sit here and just say like, who is Amanda Marie? And just kind of really think about that, because I'm a mother, I'm a business owner, I'm a daughter, a sister, like I have a bunch of titles, but that's not necessarily who I am fundamentally as a person.
Well, we've talked about that because, and what I mentioned to you is when you start, because, you know, God forbid, you may not always be like you weren't a mother before. Like, you lose people and that title is gone. And that's why a lot of people, when they lose people that they love, are totally lost, because it's like, without them, who am I? And that's why you got to kind of figure out who you are at your core.
Yeah, like, what do you love to do? What makes you excited? What brings you passion and joy? And what makes you want to wake up in the morning? Because sometimes it's a little bit more than just going to work or going to a new museum. I don't know. I can't think of the best example off the top of my head, but it is like, there's something, there is a fire within you burning, and you have to find out what ignites it. So that's something that I encourage everyone to take a moment and really just kind of think about. And honestly, I mentioned when I first said that meditation a little bit, I just want to point out that is not something you have to think too much into at all. And I think that's why some people are hesitant with meditation, because I've had so many people say to me, actually, let me rephrase that. I have said this before I kind of really got into it. I used to always say, I can't shut my mind off, so I can't meditate. That is not what you have to do to meditate.
Right.
If anything, let your mind keep going. Yeah. Acknowledge things that are popping up, because you're supposed to be kind of like listening to yourself and that.
Meditation often gets mistaken as people do on the like lotus and I'm closing my eyes, and if that works for you, great. But meditation truly can be coloring, it can be running, it can anything. You can meditate in the shower. It's whatever can get you within and being in the moment.
Well, it's interesting because I've always had a little bit of a hyperactive problem. So I've always been someone I'm moving around right now when I'm talking. I've always been someone who's kind of like always moving, and like if I hear music, like I'm automatically like moving around dancing, and my mind kind of goes somewhere else. Yeah. And it took me years to realize that while I am dancing, I'm meditating, I'm manifesting, I'm truly being myself. And it's insane, like with my business and even the amount of things that you guys see right now, like happening, I probably thought of while I was dancing.
That's your connection.
Yeah.
Find what connects you to yourself and to spirit, universe, whatever it is that you believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another thing that people struggle with as well. I love that you said connecting to whatever it is you believe, because you can believe in absolutely anything and still find that spiritual connection.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with whether you're religious or whether you're anything. That is just something that comes from within, and we all have it in us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But that makes it hard for people. That's another thing that makes it hard for people, because people that have been raised in some certain religions and they get that ingrained in them, but they want to push away, then they feel like that's a whole other.
It is, and it's unfortunate too, because you can be religious and believe in absolutely anything, and it's unfortunate that there are some people who think that they're turning against their beliefs by kind of connecting with themselves. Because if you look at any religion, I mean, even in the Bible, when you really read in between the lines, it's all about connecting with your God and who you believe in and becoming one. So it even says pretty much that the power is within you. And all you have to do is find it, express it, believe in it. It's interesting, really. And I encourage anyone who is not familiar with this like type of spirituality of just connecting with yourself. I mean, you could listen to us, or you could even do your own research. I could offer up some materials. I bet Tracy could as too.
There's lots of books, there's lots of websites, there's all kinds of ways to get into, and there's different levels of, there are definitely more beginners than there's more. You never want to, if this is something that is starting to ignite in someone and they're still at the beginnings, you don't want to go in anything too deep, because that can scare people away too. You gotta start and then kind of build.
Exactly. Start simple, go from there, find what's best for you.
Yeah.
Like, you can listen to me all day, you can listen to Tracy all day, you can listen to some random podcast, you can listen to whoever you want, but it really doesn't matter unless it connects and resonates with you directly.
It's all about resonating with
Yeah.
them.
Like I could ask you for a list of books, and it doesn't mean that a single one of them is going to help me.
Exactly.
Or maybe they will, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cool thing to think about too. I mean, we're all on our own unique journeys.
Mhm.
They may be similar, they may feel the same sometimes. I mean, we all, especially right now, are going through a lot of different things. And I do think that the times that we're in, it's interesting because it's very rare to have something happen that affects the entire world,
Yes.
which is obviously going on at the moment. So it's interesting to see the fact that, or see the way people are navigating that and kind of pushing through and finding what works for them. Some people are not in the best place right now, and I can understand that. Some people are in the best place of their lives. If you go and see what some people are saying about their experience over the last 9 months, I mean, I personally, it's not been easy. I send my love and prayers to everyone who's been dealing and suffering with everything that's going on, and I wish safety and health for everybody. But I do gotta tell you, my business would not have happened because I wasn't speaking my truth, and I wouldn't focus solely on my business. I started this, but it was a side thing for me, and I worked for other people. So I couldn't put my full time in until I finally only had time.
Right.
Didn't know what else to do. So I started with this, and look where we are now. And still, some people even say, like, oh, I see what you're doing with Wicked Smart, like, and I'm like, oh yeah, thanks. And then they're like, so what do you do for work now?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, this.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, that would have bothered me before.
And now it doesn't.
And now it doesn't. Now I realize that as long as I know that that's what I'm doing, that it's working, that I'm learning, and
That's
that I'm
on
growing.
them. That's
Exactly.
on them.
And that's an important thing about deciphering and speaking your truth as well.
Yes.
People are gonna talk. People are going to question you. People are going to say mean things sometimes, negative things. It's just inevitable. It's inevitable that there's always gonna be a little bit of like negativity in
Yeah.
your ear and stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you just gotta choose not to listen to that. That's what it comes down to. You have to choose to believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm. And disengage.
Exactly.
Boundaries.
Boundaries. Oof, that's a good one for us.
Oh, especially lately.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard that. I've had a situation lately. A lot of my friends, like, this is a
Yeah.
big boundary setting time.
Well, I get a good example for that. Cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
People think that we have to be available
Huh.
at all times
Yep.
just because I do have a phone.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I do have a number you can call, an email. That is definitely just not true. Like, I think that one of the boundaries that now that we're all home, most of us, we're all working from home, we're all on our phones, on our computers, way more than we've ever been, literally ever. So people are like, I just texted them 3 minutes ago. Why aren't they answering? Is she mad at me? What did I do wrong? And it's like, no, I'm sorry. I didn't, like, I
I'm
don't
taking
know.
a break.
Exactly. I struggle, especially being a new business and working from home. I find myself sometimes at 11 p.m. making flyers, like reading emails, and it's like, what are you doing? You gotta set those boundaries for yourself.
Yes.
Self-care.
Very much. And again, it's truth. Finding out what works for you and then acting on that.
Exactly. And you know what? That's interesting because for me, I guess I could say like working late actually does work for me. Having a child at home, sometimes it's easier to do things at night, but it's also that like if I was already doing it all day, it's hard for me to stop myself from going all day.
That is different. If it was like you said, if you're and you're busy and then but during the day you're not that's finding that.
And that goes with setting the boundaries though, saying like, okay, I'm gonna work from 7 to 9 p.m., but I'm not gonna work from 1 to 3 today.
Right.
Like I'm gonna take my break then and take care of myself. And that's the thing, like we said, it's all about what works for you the best. And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the really cool things that I learned from Tracy specifically is really to kind of recognize when you're doing something and you could be afraid of something or you could be weary and it's like, are those your fears?
Yep.
Are those your nerves? Or are you listening to other people?
Yep.
And a lot of times you're listening to other people, and Like,
I remember when you realized that, you're like, oh, wait a minute. And then you started going through them in your head, and you're like, what is this?
and when I tell you, it was almost like immediate relief. Like, all of a sudden I was like, I'm not afraid of that anymore. Like, this is cool. I can do this. Like,
we were joking because I kept saying, what's the worst? Did you die?
Yeah. Like, seriously, though, worst case scenario, you know what? That is one of the most important things that I've learned and that I would love to put out there is when you are hesitant or like nervous about doing something, always think about the worst case scenario, and 9 out of 10 times the worst case scenario is not that bad. So go for it. Follow your heart, follow your dreams and desires, and just do what you want to do, as long as it's not putting you or anyone else at risk, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying just like go AWOL, like go wild and give no regard for anyone else's feelings. Of course, there are people in your life where it matters what their thoughts and feelings are if it affects them. If you're doing something that can affect someone else, then definitely acknowledge that. If you're doing something for you and someone else has something to say about it,
Yeah,
it's a whole other story. It really is. It's a whole it's a whole nother world once you start realizing that you have to just listen to yourself. I think it opens so many doors. I mean, another thing that I've personally done is silenced myself just because I was listening to my own voice. Like, I'd hear something in my head, I would be overthinking or analyzing, or at least that's what I thought I was doing, but really it was my gut actually speaking up, and I'm like, oh, Amanda, you're crazy, like, you're just overthinking that. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I probably do overthink, but if you just listen to yourself, you can decipher when it is that when it is
you'll
what
know.
you're doing.
You'll know. When you're connected to your higher self, it never puts time constraints on. It never it doesn't question the what ifs. It does it. It's positive.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about a little bit, because you do offer so many different services.
Yes.
And which I think is cool because that's how I am. It's like when there's something that I know I can do that can help, or something I love to do, like, why not try to make it all work within your boundaries, of course. So I do want to go a little bit over some of the stuff you do, because I mean, energy work, we mentioned what that is a little, but it is something that if you haven't heard about it or you haven't tried it, I highly suggest. It could be factored in with hands-on massage. That's something she does.
Yes, combo sessions. Actually, a lot of my services can mix and mingle. I mean, all depending on what someone wants, what they think they want to try, and then what comes up if they're open. I mean, I have a lot of people that work with me, and right after one session, like when they come in, like you do you, like you whatever, because things channel through, and they're like, just trust and just you do you.
Yeah.
But I mean, massage, energy work, guided meditation, and cards can all be incorporated into one session.
I love that. And that's the thing too. So we were talking about like intuition, which I think is something really important that people recognize when it comes to like reading cards or doing stuff like this. I know some people are hesitant when it comes to speaking to a medium or getting readings, and I understand that, and I respect everyone's beliefs, but I do think it's important to recognize that if you're reading cards, like, it's not like you're performing some type of witchcraft.
Yeah,
like,
no.
That's a whole nother thing, to each his own. I have nothing against it, but that is not what you're doing. You're following your intuition. You're listening to like what's guiding you from within, and I think that's something really cool.
Yeah, getting connected and listening to what the guides come in, and
Yeah, and that once you speak your truth, getting connected is a lot easier.
because they'll keep banging you on the head with different things until you listen often. Unfortunately, there are certain things where I'm like a little slow with, and they're just like, girl, and then they'll give you something that's like kick you in the ass and be like, oh, okay.
I mean, just like how we were talking about the example of this show, like I could not have been told more times that day that this was not supposed to happen, and I felt it for a couple days leading up, and you know what? My main thought was, I don't want to let Tracy down, who's going out of her way to help me and to be a guest and something like that, which, of course, it's nice to think about someone else's feelings, but it was still kind of at my expense, whereas I could have ahead of time opened up and spoke to you.
And I would have been like, that's fine.
Exactly. Instead, we went through the whole silent film.
That's what I always say. I'm like, you do you. Like, it's...
And I think that comes down to, again, respecting your own boundaries, respecting someone else's. Like, obviously, you don't want to schedule your time with someone and then just leave them hanging, not show
Right.
up, not give them a warning just because it
Right.
didn't feel right. Like, yes, follow what's best for you, but within reason. Like, if something comes up, let someone know. Be honest and open about it. That way they're not sitting around waiting and kind of, because the thing is that I think a lot of people forget, time, it's an odd concept because it's one of the most valuable things we really have, even though it's kind of this whole like man-made created thing, which we can get into at a different
Time's
time.
an illusion, yeah.
Yeah, like
It is.
that's a
Well,
whole
there's
different-
so many things you can get onto the whole man-made and we've developed that
that's a whole nother topic for a different
Yes.
day. But overall, the important thing to remember is like that is all we each really have, because we all have only like a certain amount of time here, as who we are right now, at least.
I was gonna say, when you're in this meat packet.
I knew you were thinking. That's why I literally knew where you were gonna go with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting because our time is important, others' time is important. So, kind of like communicating is one of the biggest.
Throat.
Speaking. True.
Yeah, it's throat. It's speaking. You know.
No, it's interesting. I've had a few people I've talked to who were telling me about experiences where like they were doing something that they didn't necessarily want to do, and like they were like, oh yeah, like I don't feel good, like my throat hurts, I might be coming down with something.
I know.
But then they're fine once
Yeah.
they stay home,
Yeah.
and it's because like
Yeah.
they were doing something they didn't want to do, and you could physically feel it.
Well, that's. I'm sure I know I've experienced it where like you're feeling fine, but then all of a sudden your voice is gone, like, or it's like but you're like, but I'm not sick. I don't have any other symptoms. It's because there's something that you're not coming up with. So your voice is like, okay, fine, I'm gonna be gone then.
Yeah, I've seen that happen to a lot of people where they're like, nothing was wrong, and I woke up and can't talk.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, something's going on, so now we just have to figure out what.
Go within, figure it out,
Yeah.
and hopefully you can figure it out. The other thing too is throat is related to thyroid stuff too.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it can play havoc on your system.
It's wild the way that everything really is connected. And I think that's the other thing that a lot of us don't realize at first, and then luckily, like most of us learn as we go, is that you're internally and externally are always going to be on the same page. So if you're doing something that's like not necessarily right for any of you in or out, you can feel it in either place. I mean, that's why we both were sick when we weren't. We got tested for things, nothing was wrong with us, like, but here I was literally not able to get out of bed. And they're like, well, we don't know. And
that is the go-to when people have like, and then you just keep going to different doctors, and when they can't figure out what the hell is happening, it's automatically it's anxiety, it's PTSD, and those things do exist.
Yes, they're real.
They're real.
Well, that's the most important thing too. Like
But-
mental health, mental illness, like those are real.
Yes.
It's
But people often, it doesn't have to be as bad, and some people get labeled that when in reality it's do some energy healing, do some work, and it either calms. I mean, because I do have anxiety, I do, but it's calmed down so much.
oh yeah.
But I've been labeled. Oh Jesus Christ! I've had other labels that like when I go into doctors and I just recently got it taken off. I was so excited. But they had me labeled as something because of my family history and because of stuff. And doc's like, how are you not on meds? I'm like, because I don't need them, because that's...
It's something that you've learned how to deal with otherwise.
And I don't necessarily partake like that, label. So.
Well, and that's the thing too, though, because like I said, medication definitely works for people.
It does,
It's definitely
for some.
important.
Yes.
But for some, it also doesn't. So it's like when you do, there are some of us who have had to learn how to handle it and manage it in different ways. I used to get really annoyed when people said this to me, but sometimes it's all about shifting your mindset. And I understand that's way easier said than done.
Yep.
And like I said, I understand if you're sitting there like, yo, okay, Amanda, like if we could do that, we would.
Yep.
And because I used to say that. I'd be like, oh yeah, if it was that simple. But the thing is, sometimes it really can be when you kind of put a focus on yourself and you start to learn more about who you are and take care of yourself and heal what needs to be healed. Sometimes we don't even know what that is.
Uh-huh.
Like when I had first sat down with Tracy,
something different. You came for something
I
different.
came for something completely different. And then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like, you're telling me that all of this is stuff that I should have taken care of instead of suppressing deep down and pretending to be okay with.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Just because we said we moved on from it doesn't mean we did.
Yeah.
We have to actually learn how to do that. We have to actually be able to learn to cut the cord, release. That's something we can do at Tracy.
Mhm.
That's something I could even talk to you about,
Mhm.
mostly because I'm learning it from Tracy. But it's something that honestly opens a ton of doors.
Yeah.
Once you start recognizing the things from your past
Yeah.
that you don't even know are bothering you a lot of times.
Well, the freaky thing is too, and here we go, we're just opening Pandora's
Yeah.
box here right now. Because things from your past in this lifetime, but then you got the past. That's a whole other gamut too when you get a past lives.
Which is a workshop you do.
It is a workshop I do, yes. Workshop, when I do the workshop, it's more of exploring because the group setting is not to get into like deep healing, but one-on-one stuff, it can do amazing things.
Well, it's interesting once like you realize that the meaning of some of the things that happened to you in your life that you've been through, you start to recognize why you felt a certain way, like it just
Why
isn't-
you have certain patterns that you can't release.
Oh yeah. Patterns. Patterns. We could talk about patterns for a whole nother episode.
See, there's all kinds of cans of worms open up over here.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing with patterns though that I think is really interesting is just like everything else we're talking about, sometimes you do not realize that you are in a pattern.
Right.
That you're on this cycle until like you've gone through it like 20 plus times or your entire life even. Sometimes you don't realize.
Again, it's being mindful,
Yeah.
being aware of what's happening. A lot of times, unfortunately, a lot of us, just because society's so busy, that's why COVID's throwing some people too, because it's making us be more with it
Mindful.
and mindful.
It gives us
And-
more time to be with ourselves.
Right.
Which
There are a
some
lot
us
of
don't.
people. There are a lot of people that if you talk to them, they cannot handle being alone with no phone, no TV, because it's forcing them to go within and it's just too much.
And the thing is, I challenge anyone to kind of fight through it, that feeling of it being too much, because once you start to really dig in and acknowledge these things, whoa.
The other thing too, I just want to say is like with the healing, it is amazing stuff because the end goal, you're healing, you're getting better, positive things will happen, changes will happen. However, the process can be difficult.
Ooh, and you know what? On top of that, you're never really going to sit there and feel healed, per se.
Right. It's a lifelong journey.
Like when you're speaking of healing, it should always be that you are healing,
Yes.
not that you have been healed, because
Yes.
there's always something to work on.
Yes.
Things are coming up in our lives constantly. We're always going to be thrown obstacles and like things that are just going to make us feel like we may not be in the right place, but sometimes it's really just a test to see that you're ready to be there, which I think happens a
And
lot.
learning the tools to better cope
Yes.
with things.
And learning to recognize when it is a sign that you should keep moving forward or
Yes.
that you should maybe reroute
Mhm.
and try something else, because sometimes you are given a sign that is saying like, maybe you should not do this right now.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's like, are you ready for this? Are you sure? We want to make sure you're ready for this, which I feel like happens a lot. And unfortunately, I myself have fallen victim to being like, oh no, I'm definitely not ready then. I'm not doing this now, just because there was a little extra work involved. And I wanted it to happen like tomorrow and not like next year. Like I've learned the hard way as a business owner, actually, that just because you have a good idea doesn't mean that you should implement it next week.
Right.
Sometimes you gotta really take some time to work on it, build, and go from there.
It's like a flower. You plant the seed, you gotta bury it, gotta love it, gotta feed it, and then give it time to grow and blossom.
Exactly, it's true. And if you believe in it and you stay true to it, then you will see it grow.
Mhm.
That's the thing. If you start questioning yourself, even if you're on the right path, once you start questioning yourself, you are saying that you do not want this to even happen, pretty much.
Mhm.
So that's one of the most important things that it comes down to. Don't question yourself.
No.
If you feel a certain way, if there's something you want to do, you should do it. Try it. And again, to an extent, we don't want to put others or yourself at risk of something.
Right.
We're not saying just
Right.
go for whatever your heart desires,
Right.
but find a way to try to reach for it at least.
Mhm.
And if it works, then it works. And if something comes up where it doesn't, then maybe it wasn't meant to be. And that's okay. It's okay to do things and realize that they weren't meant to be.
Yeah.
Everything's a lesson or a blessing.
It's
Or both. Both are
yeah,
technically.
it's true. There's always stuff that happens that you just got, and unfortunately sometimes, when things happen and we get up, upset in the heat of the moment, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute though, that's what this was about.
Yes.
When you actually stop to think.
Well, I think that that's actually really interesting because there have been things that have happened in my life where after kind of being at this point of where I'm at, like after a long time of questioning everything and just thinking like, oh, well, I just shouldn't do this. I'm not good enough for this. I started to realize that some things in my life that I thought meant one thing did not at all. I mean, my journey in itself was a little confusing.
Mm-hmm.
I actually went to 4 different colleges before graduating. I did really well at all of them, but the first 3 times weren't really the right time. Like I had to stop, adjust, and kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And now I gotta tell you, not a lot of people know this. I am here right now because I finally decided to finish school back in 2020. Interesting year to do that, right? So after like a really long journey, that's when I decided to kind of wrap it up. And I ended up in a class that I kind of just needed to fill my curriculum. It was random, wasn't necessarily what I was going to school for. And it required me to start a social media presence on Twitter and have an account where I wrote a blog actually. Me being who I am, couldn't just do that. I had to take it to Facebook. I had to start a group. I had to really just kind of be extra because that's who I am. And now Wicked Smart Wellness is here and it's
you're in business.
And I'm in business. I'm hosting events. I'm hosting a talk show. Who would have thought I'd be here right now? Because honestly, I didn't. When I graduated high school, if you looked me in the eyes and said, what are you going to do? I would have looked you in the eyes and said, you will see me as a sideline reporter for the Boston Bruins.
I love it.
100% positive that that's what I was doing. And it's interesting.
I love it.
Yeah, and not much about me has changed. I've always been a talkative, outgoing person. But I didn't realize that I didn't really want to work for someone else.
Right.
I wanted to kind of grow my own brand, have my own show, do something like this. That took almost 6 years.
But you did it.
But I did it. And here I am. And all it really took was opening up and speaking my truth, not letting others silence me. And I've done that for a long time by silencing myself.
Well, my quick little, I don't know how quick it is, we'll see. But my little story about, before I got into this work, I didn't get into this work right away. I've always had gifts, but they weren't encouraged. So I didn't even really get into this. When I went to I finally was done. I was in the education field for quite a few years, and I was like, no. And I talked to my husband, who, thank God, he's supportive. Went to massage school when I was 36. So, and now massage school led to the energy, and then it just sprung, because it reopened the gifts I had already and just strengthened them. But the point with my husband, ironically, so when I was 27, so this is before, I knew I was different and I knew there was stuff, but I didn't put stuff together. But 27, I had been with somebody for 10 years of my life, worst relationship ever, but.
And that's a long time.
Yeah, but it taught me, I was crushed, it was low stuff, whatever. But when it ended, I remember being I'm 27, how am I gonna, because I'm not a bar girl, I'm not because it wasn't my scene, I'm I don't even know what's gonna happen. hanging out at my dad's work, where I met my husband. He was asking about me, and there was an interim guy, but whatever. But it was so funny because let me tell you about the universe and putting things out in the universe too, and speaking your truth. So in this interim, I was telling friends I was joking because, well, I thought I was joking, but I was kind of serious. I kept putting it out there, not realizing I was manifesting. I used to always go for people that were older than me, and I'm like, okay, somebody younger, somebody without kids and without the baggage of like a crazy ex or an ex-wife, no drugs. I'm like drinking only like occasional. I don't want
But
like
you knew
alcohol.
you really wanted.
I did, and they were very simple, and that's what I told. And then I said, younger, and then something that makes me laugh, like. And I said, and a bonus would be a man in uniform, and I would giggle. And they were just like, and I kept putting out every time somebody would ask me, and that's what I would say. And then it was funny because when Matt was asking about me, he was so cute. My dad was telling me he was asking about me. I thought my dad was kidding, whatever. And I walk in one day, and Matt looks at me, and he's like, "So you gonna go out with me or what?" And I'm like, "Do you know how old I am?" Because he's younger. And he's like, "Yeah, that's what I like about you." Now here's the other thing about Matt. When we think and put ourselves into boxes, or we have stereotypical things, or think we know what we want, like, I'll be honest, and I apologize right now, redheads were not my thing. They were not my thing. Good boys, not my thing. Like, so when he asked, my husband's a redhead.
Yeah. Well,
So when he asked
for
me
those of you
out,
who don't know.
when he asked me out, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, you know what? We'll give it a shot. Like, I'm like, it's totally stepping out of my little comfort zone and box.
Yeah.
And we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary the 6th. I said we've been together for 15 years. I mean,
I love that. Congratulations.
and he hit all my list, and he's a man in uniform.
Oh, I love that. And I gotta
Right?
say, as someone who has gotten to know you recently, I can even just see when you even speak of him, like the way
I light up.
You light up.
Yeah.
You light up. And that is something that we should be able to find in our partner, but it's also something that we should be able to feel when we talk about ourselves and what we do. And
Exactly. What lights you up?
exactly. It's the most important thing.
Yep.
It really is. And there's no shame in it not being what others think it should be.
Or what society says it should be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Look at that. We opened the door to a whole lot of things
We've been-
tonight.
I'm like, how long?
I know, like we've been going for quite some time. We have a tendency to do that.
We talk.
We talk.
Because it just goes, like.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things. I mean, even just as a person in general, I have had people over the years, "You're so annoying. Do you ever stop talking? Like, all you do is talk." And for a while, like, I started to become like extremely self-conscious about that. And so I would silence myself. Or, oh, I got the best one for you, which I guarantee you all probably feel this way, as we all do. Society has caused us to apologize for
Oh,
everything.
God, yes.
So it's like, stop apologizing for who you are.
Mhm.
Please. If you do something wrong, then yes, say sorry.
Own it.
Own
But don't, it's.
But don't apologize for who you are.
No.
You never should. You should never feel bad about being yourself, expressing your truth, doing you.
Yeah. I always tell people, do you, be you, and everything will follow fine. Like, and you know what? If people don't like you for who you are, they're not meant to be in your life.
Yes.
And that's on them, not you.
You know what? That's one of the most important things to recognize. It is okay to not fit with people.
Yes.
It is okay for people to not like you. You don't have to take it personal.
That's what I do. So I'm like, hey, reminiscent. I was on last night talking about this.
Yes.
Not everybody aligns, and even with energy, like I got it, like some light work stuff, and it's great if everybody could get along, but we're so unique. There's so many different characteristics, quirks that make us who we are,
Yes.
and we're all made of energy, and energy vibrates at different frequencies.
Yes.
And not every frequency gets along with every frequency, and that's not good or bad. I'm just saying they don't mesh, they don't align. And that's okay. And the other thing too is you'll have people in your life that you align with for a while, and then things change and shifts happen. And again, it doesn't have to be an abrupt or a fight. It just, you let things fall away and don't cling to things that don't align with you
Yes.
anymore.
That is so important. And honestly, the thing is, sometimes your time with someone is just up. Like sometimes you guys just don't click and you go a different way, and that is okay.
It is.
You know what the most important thing to think about too? You talked about a 10-year relationship.
Yep.
And not a second of that was wasted time.
Nope.
No matter how awful it might have been.
People ask me all the time, like when I get, one of the things people ask about regrets, and I'm like, I don't have any regrets, because if things didn't, this is the other thing, you may think that, and I get, there are some horrible things, I get it.
Yes,
and
of
I'm
course.
not talking about like major, but there are things that happen, they happen for a reason, they make you who you are.
Yes.
Good, bad, it helps, but like I told you, my family life was not easy, and it was funny because I remember reading a book, and it was like about your soul comes back down and it chooses who the parents are, and I'm like, no fucking way did I decide I would not choose these people. And then as I did my healing, I realized, I'm like, oh no, I did choose them. It was, they helped me learn certain things that I needed to learn, and I realize that now, and I'm like, I get it. Same thing with a 10-year relation, like the 10-year, that helped me figure out the things I didn't want.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And that's important to know. You don't always know that.
Right. Sometimes you have to start somewhere. If you don't know what you want, at least figure out what you don't.
Well, and that's the thing, like, I used to, like, if I was in a relationship, or even if I was just doing something, like, even a job that necessarily wasn't my favorite, I used to look back and be like, oh my God, I spent so much time, like, what a waste. But, in honesty, I truly hope that this is something I would have figured out on my own. However, I attribute it to sitting right here. I kind of started to recognize that, like, instead of thinking like, oh my gosh, that was a waste of time, I can't believe that happened, how much better I actually felt once I looked back and be like, but I learned this, I learned that, I now know this about myself. It's wild once you start recognizing, for example, you could end a relationship with someone, and the lesson that you learned may not have really been about who you should be with at all. It might just be a lesson about what it is, what path you're meant to be on. And honestly, one of the things that I've learned about myself that I guess I kind of knew, but it took me a while to recognize, was I am constantly trying to please others at my own expense. And I still struggle with that boundary.
There's always, again, like we've talked about, works in progress.
Yeah.
And I always tell people that improvement is good. You're not striving for, I'm sorry, I hate the word perfect, because there is no such thing as perfect.
Perfectly imperfect.
Perfectly imperfect. Because, you know, and baby steps, and as long as you're and again, here's the other thing, when you're in the healing process, don't get upset if you end up falling back. It happens, but the important thing is not to stay down. It's to be like, okay, recognize it. Not such a good day or a moment.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, that's the other thing. Allow yourself to feel it. Like, we are not saying, like,
Yeah.
don't feel the pain.
Feel the feels.
Like, don't feel feel the feels.
And then
like,
let go.
exactly. And that doesn't mean that it's not going to still pop up from time to time. That was another thing that I don't think I understood for a long time. And it was that, like, well, why is this still coming up? And honestly, one of the best things that I've learned that works for me is to literally, out loud, in my head, say, like, thank you for reminding me of what I learned during that, but I now know that no longer suits me.
Mm-hmm.
Or I now know that that's not necessarily what I want anymore. I learned my lesson. I'm going to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes just saying that can make all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really important. You just got to speak up. Speak your truth.
Yeah.
Even if it's to yourself.
Ah,
That's the most important.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
what it comes down to. Like, a lot of times when we're not speaking our truth, it's not necessarily that we're lying.
No, it's just that we don't realize, or we're hiding, I love like when people hide in, like, you know, they're scared for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And they don't want to show who they are to the world, and they hide and then they tuck it away. And there are things that we just sometimes don't want to realize about ourselves. We're like, oh no, but then when you think about it, it's like, oh wait, yes.
Which comes back to just owning it.
Yeah.
Even your flaws, your imperfections, like, that's okay. It's a part of who you are.
God, yeah.
It's a part of who you are.
Oh,
And it's really important. And that all comes back down to where we started with listen to yourself, listen to
your intuition.
Yeah, listen to
your gut, your instinct, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Like, just really make sure that you are being true to who you are, listening from within, and taking it and running with that, really, because it just, the doors that will open. It's pretty incredible. So basically, speak your truth, own your truth, love your truth. It's who you are. Love who you are.
Yeah.
You're special. You're unique. We're all.
Be uniquely you and love it.
Yeah.
And own it.
Be unapologetically you.
Yeah.
Be happy about who you are, and that's going to make you an overall, like, you're going to feel a lot better.
Well, the other thing, really quick, because I know we've been on for.
I know. You can tell that we both keep segueing to an end, and then we're like, oh wait.
One other quick thing I just want to say is when you're true to yourself and you start really owning who you are, it raises your vibration, which helps raise the vibration outside, which brings more joy, more love all around.
Well, that's just, as you start to heal, you'll notice people are just naturally attracted to that light that you're radiating.
They want it.
Yeah. As you're starting to feel better, people are going to come out of the woodworks. And you know what? Sometimes that's those are signs you got to look for too, because sometimes it can be a little questionable about what does come your way when you're doing better and when you're doing well. So you have to acknowledge what's best for you in all of these situations.
It's a check within and do an inventory. Does this work? Does this not work? Does it resonate? Does it feel right? And just trust yourself.
Absolutely. Well, this has been fantastic. I am so glad we finally got to really just sit here, talk about this, and share it with everybody. Today marks a really important day for me.
Yes,
this was my first episode. Thank you.
you.
Thank you for being a part of it. It means the world. Again, this is Tracy Lunt. We are at Serendipitous Souls in Peabody, Mass. And that's really all we got for today. I'm Amanda Marie of Wicked Smart Wellness. Thank you all for joining me on this journey. I will talk to you all soon, and always remember, stay smart.